Hello, welcome to a new edition of the Right Wing Populist Podcast. I am the Right Wing Populist. So, happy Thanksgiving, folks. I hope you guys are all having an amazing Thanksgiving, spending time with all your wonderful family members and friends. And maybe you're not so wonderful family members and friends, but try to enjoy it. Your friends and family aren't going to be there forever, folks, so enjoy them when they're there so you don't regret it in the future. So I want to talk about, the New York Times did a big sort of hit piece, or if you want to be generous, an article, quote unquote, about Trump's cognitive, quote unquote, decline, his aging in the White House, and what this means. I think the piece was largely unfair, so I want to break that down. But before we get into all of that, please, please subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever the hell you listen to this amazing, growing podcast. Support independent podcasts, folks. I don't have the Daily Wire. I'm not part of the Megyn Kelly's podcasting network. I'm independent. I'm literally recording this in like a shitty apartment. So support the podcast, please. I would really freaking appreciate it. And one more thing before we get into the meat of the podcast, since it's Thanksgiving, I want to mention one thing I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for my friends. I've been lucky enough to have some really good friends over the years. Friends that I've known since literally elementary school that I'm still friends with and still talk to and hang with on a regular basis. But one friend in particular, I'm not going to say his name for privacy reasons, but on the podcast a few weeks ago, I did a segment about not burning bridges because I had this falling out with this friend, and I really regretted how I had handled it. And just a little update, folks, we're fine. We're friends again. It was a little awkward. We had a nice little talk. It was actually quite sweet, I would say. And I think we're good. I think we're friends again. So, buddy, if you're listening, good to have you back. So let's get into the meat of the podcast. The New York Times did this sort of a hit piece on Trump and his aging. And basically the article essentially claims that Trump's not doing public appearances outside of basically a 5-hour window between 12 to 5. He's often sitting down at these press conferences or when he speaks to the media instead of standing. They mention the fact that he curses a bit more as if that's a sign of aging. I got to be honest, the piece wasn't that. I mean, you can read it if you have access to the New York Times, or you can probably find a gift article somewhere. It wasn't really that compelling. Trump has gotten older. There's no question about that. I don't want to pretend like he's the exact same person he was back in 2015 or 2016. He's not. He's about 10 years older. But, a lot of people on the left I see are trying to basically Joe Biden Trump. They're basically trying to force the same issues Joe Biden had with his cognitive decline. They're not projecting that onto Trump because Trump is about the same age Biden was during Biden's term as president. And this is an unfair attack on Trump. Trump is not having the cognitive issues Joe Biden had. And look, everyone slows down. In fact, even Trump talked about that. He did a Truth Social in response to the New York Times article. And I gotta read it because, some of these, whenever you have a long Truth Social post from Trump, we have to read them on the podcast, folks. They're so funny. So let me pull it up real fast. Here we go. The creeps at the failing New York Times are at it again. I won the 2024 presidential election in a landslide, winning all 7 swing states, the popular vote, and the electoral college by a lot. I won our nation's districts by 2,750 to 550, a complete wipeout. I've settled 8 wars, have 48 new stock market highs. Our economy is great and our country is respected again. All over the world, respected like never before. The last administration had the highest inflation in history. I have already brought that down to normal, and prices, including groceries, are coming down. To do this requires a lot of work and energy, and I have never worked so hard in my life. Yet despite all of this, the radical left lunatics and the soon-to-fold New York Times did a hit piece on me that I am perhaps losing my energy, despite facts that show the exact opposite. They know this is wrong, and it's almost every way they write about me, including election results. all purposely negative. This cheap rag, he's so funny, bro, is truly the enemy of the people. The writer, the writer of the story, Katie Rogers, who is assigned to write only bad things about me, is a third-rate reporter who is ugly, both inside and out. Despite all this, I have my highest poll numbers ever. And that's not true. And with record-setting investments being made in America, they should only go up. There will be a day when I run low on energy. It happens to everyone. But with a perfect physical exam and comprehensive cognitive test that was aced just recently taken, it certainly is not now. God bless America and make America great again. Bro, he's so funny, bro. I can't even get through all that with the straight face. She's both ugly inside and out. Bro is so funny. So I don't think Trump liked I don't think he liked the article that the New York Times wrote about him. I think that's pretty obvious. He didn't like the article. So, so are there any signs of Trump slowing down? And all jokes aside, what is the evidence? Couple things. Number one, when Biden was president, he would often call people the wrong names. Trump has not really been doing that. The one example they always talk about is when Trump referred to Nikki Haley as Nancy Pelosi. But that was almost 2 years ago. That's their go-to example for that. It's if your go-to example of Trump getting people's names wrong is something he did basically 2 years ago when he was younger, I don't think that's a very good example. Other thing is Biden wouldn't talk to the media. His administration hit him because they knew his brain was retarded, so he couldn't talk. They hit him on purpose so the public wouldn't see how bad he was, so he wouldn't talk to the media. Well, Trump is talking to the media all the time. He's always doing little gaggles, whether it's on Air Force One or at the White House. He's doing actual press conferences. He's giving public statements, speeches whenever events happen. So again, there's no comparing him to Biden. And again, what I would also say, give me an example of Trump having a mental breakdown or a brain meltdown of what Biden did during the debate, the famous debate between him and Trump. Joe Biden's brain literally stopped working on the debate stage against Trump. We beat Medicare. I mean, it's he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. His brain stopped working. You cannot find a similar situation of Trump doing the same thing the way Biden did. You just can't. So, for what it's worth, I'm only comparing him to Biden because, one, similar ages during this term and Biden's term, and because I'm seeing these liberals on Blue Sky and all these dumb Reddit losers saying that, Trump's there are people like David Pakman, these idiots, these libtard lefties who, get paid by the DNC, as we discovered David Pakman does. David Pakman has done segment after segment after segment after segment talking about Trump's alleged cognitive decline. Okay. And he did not do the same thing when Biden was president, though. I can't take you seriously if you're going to talk about Trump having cognitive decline if you do not discuss Biden's obvious cognitive decline when he was president. Because to the extent Trump's having any cognitive decline, it's normal decline you would expect for an aging person, and it's pretty discreet and subtle. Again, if you actually look how Trump speaks and talks, it's really not that much different at all. He looks physically older because he is. He has more wrinkles. His hair is thinner. It's a little more messy these days. He just coats himself with the orange makeup now just to hide the wrinkles, and it doesn't really work these days anymore because he has too many wrinkles. But from a cognitive standpoint, the way he talks, he's the same guy. Fundamentally, he's the same guy. Joe Biden wasn't the same guy during his term as president. He suffered a rapid decline. He was already declining when he took office in 2020, but throughout the 4 years, he was obviously declining at a rapid rate in a way that Trump so far has not shown. Could that change? It's possible. People age at different rates, so you never know. But comparing or the people who are comparing Trump to Joe Biden, it's sort of a non-starter for me. The other thing the article talks about is that Trump had like an MRI that he tried to hide from the public. It's like, okay, like good. He is an older president. He should be getting more MRIs than probably, yearly. Probably should be, maybe every 6 months. Good for him, just given his age. That's good. I mean, Joe Biden almost certainly was diagnosed with, with prostate cancer during his presidency, and they hid that from us. And if they really did discover it not till he got out of office, he should have. That's all the more reason for Trump to get more checkups when he's president. So it's not like Joe Biden. So again, Biden hid stuff most likely, and even if he wasn't hiding stuff, all the more reason for Trump to get more, more physical checkups. Again, I don't like they try to say, oh, he's hiding the fact that he's going to the hospital to get MRIs. It's like, okay, unless the MRI shows something that's, that we should know, I don't give a shit if Trump's discreetly getting MRIs. Who gives a fuck? He should be doing that. Like, what? It's ridiculous. So, I don't think Trump's too old to be president. I just don't see the evidence for that. He seems to me like he's doing he's done much more in this year than Biden did throughout his 4 years. His administration, if anything, is more competent than his first administration when he was younger. Like, what is the evidence he's too old to be president? I don't see it. So, the article from the New York Times was kind of bullshit. And I don't blame Trump. I mean, again, you got to admit, the Truth Social post is really funny. She's ugly. Both inside and out. That's how I talked about my exes after I break up with them. That's how I talked about my buddy when I had the falling out with him for 2 months. Not only is he lame, he's ugly, both inside and out. And it's like, well, why do you care if he's ugly, bro? It's like, he's a guy. Why do you care? And then I have to get all defensive about, oh, it's not about that. And then people bring up about why I'm always making jokes about Grindr, and it just gets awkward after that. So let's change the subject. Let's not even get into that. But Trump's not too old to be president. I just don't see the evidence for that. So anyway, and this podcast is probably going to be a little bit shorter just because of Thanksgiving. I got stuff to do. But one more thing I want to talk about quickly is the Georgia case against Trump got fully dismissed yesterday. For those who don't know, Fani Willis, or Fani Willis, whatever the hell you want to say her name, she, back in 2023, indicted President Donald J. Trump because Trump had the audacity to want to have recounts in Georgia. And when the recounts didn't happen, or the audits didn't happen that he wanted, his electors decided to say they were Trump's electors. So in case the election contest was ever actually heard, that Trump's electors were still in place in case those results were ultimately overturned in Georgia. And because of that, he got indicted. It was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous case. It was a RICO case. It was absurd. There was like 20 people who were indicted as part of this big conspiracy. It was total bullshit. And what happened is during some of these pretrial motions, the legal team, or one of the lawyers, the legal team for all these people, they filed a motion basically saying that Fani Willis was having an affair with the top prosecutor on the case. I think his name was, I forget his name. Wade Phillips, I think, something like that. But she ended up getting disqualified from the case because of that, essentially, because she was having an affair with the top prosecutor. Trump also then wins the presidential election, which cripples the case even more. So the case had to be assigned to another prosecutor in Georgia because she was disqualified. It was assigned to another prosecutor, and he dismissed the case because, again, Trump's president, really can't prosecute him. And it would be sort of ridiculous to try to prosecute him 3 years or 4 years after the fact, especially when the case itself was so ridiculous. She indicted all these people. None of these people were just election lawyers that she indicted. It was just absurd. And I bring this up, this is the end of the lawfare, by the way. That was the last criminal case that was sort of semi-alive. It wasn't really alive, but it was still technically out there to some degree. But all the lawfare cases are dead. The 2 Jack Smith cases, that asshole, those cases are gone. He had to dismiss them when Trump got elected. The New York case, Trump was convicted of, but there was no penalty, and Trump's appealing that right now. And I think it's very likely that conviction gets overturned. But, we'll see what happens. And then the Georgia case, it's officially dead now, too. So all the lawfare that was obviously meant to try to destroy Trump's chances of becoming president again, not only didn't work, it clearly backfired, and it's one of the biggest reasons Trump's back in the White House to this day. I just wanted to make that very clear. Lawfare should not be allowed in this country, and it's a glorious thing in America that it failed, and we should not allow that to happen again. We do not indict presidential candidates. We do not indict our opponents for presidential elections. We don't do that in America, and hopefully we never do it again in America. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. Going to be a little bit shorter because, again, it's Thanksgiving. I got some stuff to do. But again, please subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. I'd really appreciate it. And again, I hope you guys have an amazing Thanksgiving. Shout out to all my friends and family. I love you all, some more than others. I won't say who more than others, but I love you all to varying degrees. You guys have an amazing Thanksgiving, folks. Bye-bye.